This episode of Chi Life will be about the state of the art of breathing books at the current time. As some of you probably know, at the moment I'm working hard to get a Qigong training program together. And collectively the program is called the Inner Fire program, and it focuses on some of the more active and dynamic aspects of Qigong practice. So in there we're going to be working with wild animal play, we're going to be working with iron shirt, which is definitely a more dynamic type of practice, and also some of the more dynamic breathing practices, and exploring some of the benefits and application of some of these different practices. And as part of this, whenever I'm working on preparing something, I like to look around and survey what's already out there, to find out what people are saying, how they're expressing different things, and to help give me perspective on what it is that I'm doing. And so hopefully I can voice that or structure in a way that really contributes in a useful way to what is already out there. Because if it's all already been covered, why bother? If it's all already there. So I like to get that context. And as part of that, over the last little while, I have been going through and reading a whole lot of books on breathing, and specifically relatively recent books, because this is an exercise I've done in the past. I've gone through and found all of the books I could find on breathing. I do this for other topics as well, of course, and read them just to see what's there. But I couldn't tell you how long it's been since I last did that. It would be easily over a decade since I've sort of gone through and really looked and read these different books. And so it's been an interesting process. In the past, what there tended to be in terms of books on breathing is there were either very traditional works from old traditional practices, which are often expressing things in a way that's embedded with a lot of cultural meaning and sometimes mysticism, and so which can make it quite hard to really understand and comprehend what it's really talking about. And I think sometimes it's just an artifact of culture, and other times I think it's possibly done on purpose, to actually make it harder for people to really grasp the essence of some of these things. And then the other thing that you would find sometimes is very, very technical books, like looking at very specific aspects of physiology, of chemistry, and in such a focused way on individual parts that, for someone with a non-scientific background, hard to decipher, and also often not that applicable just in practical terms, and like what does this mean holistically for breathing and breathing practice, because it's focused in on these these little individual details. So those were two of the things you would find a lot of. And then the other thing that you would find is a few people writing about and teaching about breathing, but focusing on just one aspect of breathing, kind as if that's all there is to breathing, and everyone should breathe this one way. So fortunately, I've been quite pleasantly, I don't know if I'd say surprised, because I have been at least a little bit aware of what's going on in the world out there, and there has been this emerging or resurgence of interest in breathing practices, and some of that comes down to there's a few people out there in quite high profile ways teaching different aspects of breathing and really catching people's interest. And one of the people who I think we can definitely give a big part of the credit for this to is a guy called Wim Hof. If you don't know who he is, he's well worth looking up. He's also known as the Iceman, and he's famous for doing, well, different stunts and related, and he attributes some of this to his breathing practices, things like swimming underwater under the ice and things like that. And this has drawn a lot of attention, and people have become interested through him drawing that attention. They've become interested in breathing practice. Now, one of the things that, personally, I think, like overall, I think Wim Hof has done an amazing job. One of the, I wouldn't even necessarily say weaknesses of his approach, one of the limitations of his approach, that's probably a better way to put it, is that he focuses on, much like many other people previously, on one aspect of the breath, one type of breathing technique. And look, again, I wouldn't put this as a weakness, because in a way that can be a strength, because it gives people something really simple to focus on. They just focus on this one thing, become engaged with that one thing, and they don't get so distracted by lots of different things, and maybe they're more likely to experience something beneficial from that. But it is a bit limited, just focusing on this one area, because there's so many different aspects to breathing, and it applies to so many different, well, every area of our life, and there's different ways that ideally our breathing works and adapts in different situations. So one of the things I've been quite pleased to see is that in this emerging world of people teaching about breathing, is that some of them are actually starting to not just focus on just like one technique, but they are actually starting to look at breathing more widely and in a relatively holistic way, and look at some of the different ways that we might want to breathe, or the different types of breathing technique that we might want to use for different aspects of our lives or for different purposes. And those of you who maybe have been following this channel for a while might recall some time ago I had my own experience with some of the Wim Hof breathing through an instructor who was teaching that. And one of the things I said at the time, because I posted a little review here on the channel, one of the things I said at the time was that one of the things I could see coming out of this, or that I hoped would come out of this, of Wim Hof doing this work and really attracting people's attention, is that not only would they get the benefit from what they learned from him, but that would act as a gateway where they then might want to go further into understanding other aspects of the breath as well. And it seems like that's happening, and I think that's a really good thing. I guess as a note, I have actually already written a little book review of one of these books on breathing that I've read lately. So you can find, I'll put a link to that in the description below. You'll find that on the Long White Cloud Qigong website. And I have actually thought about maybe writing a review of each of the different books. And again, these are recent books that I'm reading on breathing, just so, I don't know, people can see my thoughts on it, or and also maybe get a little bit of an idea of what they might find in these books before they put the time in to read them themselves. So if you'd like me to do that, maybe make a note, in the comments below. Tell me that you'd like me to do more book reviews on breathing books. The thing that's kind of put me off doing too many reviews is like, then I just have all the articles on the website might be a little bit dominated by breathing book reviews for a little while. So I don't know, if you think that would be helpful, maybe comment about that below to let me know. So it's great that there's this resurgent interest in breathing, because there's so much benefit to be gained from understanding and working with your breath. I think that's really awesome. And it's great that some teachers and authors are writing more widely about these different aspects of the breath, and they're filling in this space between the maybe somewhat mystical older traditional texts, and then the really tightly defined scientific texts that maybe don't have too much practical application often. They're finding this space in the middle where they're seeking to understand and explain things in ways that relate to the modern science but are understandable to common people, and not only that, in ways that people can use in their common experience. So I think that's really, really awesome. And looking at what I've seen so far, reviewing these different books, there are still some gaps there though. So there's a ways to go. It's big progress, but there's still a ways to go. And one of the big gaps that I see so far, and again, I haven't finished reading all of them, so maybe there's someone out there who's filling in some of these gaps, is in helping people to understand some of the structural effects of breathing and different ways of breathing. There's a lot of focus on, I guess, the biochemical and to some extent the emotional aspects of the breath, but not so much about some of the structural and mechanical effects of the breath. And I think to have a true understanding of the breathing function, you really need both, because there's an interplay between the mechanical and the biochemical, and then the emotions and things and state of mind that runs in between. And it's by having both sides to that, it has much more explanatory or much greater power for understanding the application of the breath in different ways, in different circumstances. So those of you who've done some breathing training with me before will know that in the old Release the Power of Your Breath course, we did, at least to some degree, look at some of those mechanical aspects of the breath and the interplay, how that ties together. So that's something that I think I'll be aiming to explore probably in a bit more detail in some of the breathing practices that I'll be teaching coming up as well, to help to fill in some of those blanks and give people a broader understanding of the breath. So probably won't be able to cover every aspect of it, because the breathing is such a vast topic, but certainly contribute some value in helping people to understand their breathing more broadly. So anyway, that's my little state of the art update on my impressions of where breathing books are at. Very encouraging in many ways. Hope you've enjoyed the vlog. If you have, please like, comment, subscribe, things like that, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.